Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, and we are here after the Steelers have beaten the Jets 37-15. I'm sorry, destroyed the Jets 37-15. Russell Wilson going off, the balanced offense, the defense in the second half. We're going to go over all of it here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show in your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Hillsdale College. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's Hillsdale College. More on them later. Steelers fans, it's a victory Monday as the Pittsburgh Steelers come out smoking the New York Jets. It was stumbling at first. They weren't fast out the gates, but when they picked it up, they picked it up. And truly, what I want to focus on in this show is the point of a balanced attack, of this offense being able to use different parts of it to hurt defenses in multiple ways, which was what we said in the Friday episode when it still wasn't official that Russell Wilson was starting. But when General Hunter went over, it's like, look, this is why they're thinking about this, because they believe that Russell Wilson can be the guy that distributes the football, that lets the playmakers make plays, that hits the open guy and lets them get these guys in the right spot so that they can move the ball, they can score points. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened in this game. And it wasn't all pretty. The Steelers, stumbled out. Their first 4 possessions of the game were seven plays and a field goal, then 3 straight 3-and-outs, and there were a lot of questions after that. But after that third 3-and-out, their next drives were a 9-play field goal drive, 4-play punt drive, 4-play touchdown drive, field goal, a touchdown on the QB sneak, and then 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns. Their last 3 possessions of the game were touchdown, touchdown, and touchdown. The Steelers offense got the job done. And yes, Russell Wilson played a huge role in this game. His stats weren't completely dominant. It wasn't 500 yards and 5 touchdowns, but 16 of 29, 264 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Also had the QB sneak for a passer rating of 109. That is the efficiency we have been talking about could be present in this offense if the Steelers could take advantage of some of the downfield passing and, again, just distribute the football and hit the open guy, which he wasn't doing early. He certainly has a lot of mistakes there. But as the game went on, you saw it start to click. George Pickens, his best game of the season, 5 catches on 9 targets for 111 yards and a touchdown. Pat Freiermuth, 2 catches for 51 yards. Darnell Washington, 4 for 36 yards. Calvin Austin had a really bad drop on a 3rd down, but caught a pass for 36 yards. Jaylen Warren worked a little bit in. Van Jefferson got a touchdown. That's another thing there. Oh, and by the way, it helped open up the doors for the run game to take off. Najee Harris with his 2nd straight 100-yard performance, this time going 21 carries for 102 yards and a touchdown. That's, by the way, the Najee Harris that a lot of people were writing off, saying that he was a bust, saying he was bad, and Arthur Smith's offense. I said Arthur Smith's offense could open that guy up in the last 2 games. It's looking like that. By the way, this coming against the number 7 scoring defense in the NFL, the Jets coming into this game. So all that being said, there was a lot said about the move for the switch to Russell Wilson. Now, Mike Tomlin was taking a lot of heat all week long for it. In fact, there was a statement released by Jay Glazer saying, who's a popular media person on Fox, talked very close to Mike Tomlin. Jay Glazer came out, I think it was Sunday morning on the pregame show, saying that Mike Tomlin said that this was his call. He was the Lone Ranger on this call. There were some divided places here. Well, if it was Mike Tomlin's call, it was a good one because Russell Wilson unlocked different parts of this offense, saw players downfield, and even managed the pressure well, despite the fact that the Jets were able to get into the backfield and create pressure throughout this game. Russell Wilson was sacked 1 time in this game, which was a big thing. Everyone said, how is he going to survive behind this offensive line? Well, he survived against this team, and the Jets were one of the best sack-producing teams in the NFL. I want you to listen to how Russell Wilson talks about the balanced parts of this team and why it can work, and immediately how he credits what Arthur Smith's offense is building to do. Here's Russell Wilson in the Steelers postgame when I got to ask him a couple questions.
What about this passing game opened up for you guys in the second half, especially? You're distributing the ball to several different guys making plays at different times.
I thought Arthur Smith did a great job, letting me cut it loose and guys getting open and guys moving around, just making tremendous plays. I thought he called a great game. He helped me get into a groove. We talked about it earlier in the week, and then at the end of the week, he said, it may take a second, I never believed that, but it did. And then we caught a groove. We believed in it, and just the line was giving me enough time to make all those throws, and just when you got playmakers like we have, man, anything's possible. So, like I said, there's still more out there too, and we'll make sure that we get better as we go.
Russ, how do you make that decision of when to give George a shot down the field, or maybe this isn't the right time?
There's a time and place for everything. I think the good thing is we got playmakers on the left and the right, and you're looking at assessing at everything and just those opportunities that you get. You want to give him as many chances as you can because he's going to come down with them. And so he's just what's been amazing about George is I know he went through a little up and down that's just part of this game. Sometimes is it doesn't always go your way right away. That was cool because George and I had a cool conversation a couple weeks ago, and just not giving up on stuff, just believing in himself, believing in us, believing in the journey, and just continue to do what he does best, man. God gave him a tremendous gift, and man, one of the things about George is, man, when he catches that ball, he's got a light to him. The whole stadium feels it, and there's an energy to him, and that's what makes him the superstar that he is. And there's more work to be done, and and we're going to get better as we go with our football team.
Is there a balance to this offense you feel like you guys are still unlocking as far as Najee on the ground, George, everybody else through the air that makes you guys more dangerous?
Yeah, the thing is that I feel like we have this young offense, young players that are so talented, and we're just like right on that edge of getting really good and being great. And we got to keep searching for that edge. We got to keep learning, and studying and spending the time on it. And when we get to go against our defense every day, who's the top of the game, you get to see guys like TJ Watt and Cam and Minka, and just we're all learning and watching, Alex and just these guys, just PQ and E-Rob and those guys, just the edge that they play with and they come to work with. And for us as well as on the offensive side, we get to see that, we get to experience that, we get to be that too. And we have that in our locker room. And so, part of my job, I believe, sitting here in 13 years in the game is to make sure I take guys to that edge and understand that we got to go there. We can't wait. And so that's the biggest thing right now is there's a lot more room that we can grow, and we're gonna go for it, and we're gonna celebrate tonight. But when that clock strikes in the morning, that sun comes up in the morning, we got to get better.
Several notes that I think were solid leadership points from Russell Wilson. One, crediting Arthur Smith's offense, because, again, I've been saying I think that there have been guys open downfield. There were, again, in this game. A lot of people didn't believe me on the social media and things, and, well, that bared out. But two, notice how he talked I've been talking to George Pickens weeks ago. We were talking about it. He's helping him with it. This is a guy who is fully aware of not just the things he has to manage on the field, but the relationships I think he's managing off the field. That's a really good sign for things for Russell Wilson. I didn't include this in it, but he also gave a lot of credit to Justin Fields for what he's done. So Russell Wilson, I think across the board, checked off a lot of boxes in this game. And this was, again, it didn't start great. Like there was booing in the first few drives of Russell Wilson. There was a light, we want Justin chant that kind of rung out a little bit. It might've been louder in some parts of the stadium. Press box is always weird. I can't always hear how loud some things are until it's very well pronounced. But in this game, I thought Russell Wilson came out and he managed the game, which is all the Steelers have been looking for. And now you have back-to-back 30-point performances for the Steelers offense in an impressive fashion. And yes, sure, the turnovers played a part in the Steelers, getting points in this game. But that's kind of what we've been saying all along. This defense was good enough to create those turnovers, and that they just needed an offense that could cash in on those more often. And that if they did, this Steelers team could be pretty doggone good. This is also the first time the Steelers have scored 37 points in a regular season game since November 11 of 2021. I went back and I looked at it with after the Najee Harris touchdown. I believe I just want to make sure I get this right when I'm saying this. When I was looking back, I was trying to figure out how often the Steelers had been able to score 30 points or more. And if you look back during the Matt Canada era, so for 45 games during the Matt Canada era, there were 2 games they scored 30 points or more. Both of them ended in losses, kind of signaling, hey, they kind of just scored 30 points because they were just trying to keep pace with another team scoring a lot of points. In the 15 games since, so including the second half of last season when Matt Canada got fired, they've scored 30 or more points in 4 games. So that's pretty impressive that you're seeing that both last year and this year. And again, this was against a defense that was talked about a lot. Now, yes, the Jets had a lot of banged up guys, but you know what? So did the Steelers. And whenever the Steelers have hurt up guys and they lose, it's like, well, that's not an excuse. Well, it's not an excuse for the other team either. And the Steelers ran the ball, threw the ball, and I think they showed some really good signs of what they can be. And I want to talk more about that in a bit, but we also got to talk about this defense, because this defense, there were a couple things early on that they struggled with, but they had another second half shutout, and they continue to be a defense that can make a lot of adjustments in game and use those adjustments effectively against teams. We'll talk about more about that in the next segment here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, we'll remind you that this show is sponsored by BetterHelp Therapy Online. Halloween helps us have fun with what scares us. But what about those fears that don't involve zombies, ghosts, or lightning delays like the last night game, or simply 8:20 p.m. kickoffs because I'm getting really tired of them and I got another one next week? And let me tell you, BetterHelp, it terrifies me that I'm going to have to do another 3 a.m. show after a game. That's why sometimes I need therapy to help get me through that. And best place to get therapy is BetterHelp Online. BetterHelp knows that life can be busy and stressful, like mine is sometimes, so it's designed to be suitable for your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. This episode is also brought to you by Hillsdale College. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through some mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Well, our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including Constitution 101, Intro to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story, and the Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic, and so many more courses that you can take advantage today. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced so that you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Any way how you want to learn, Hillsdale will help you learn that way. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We continue talking about this Steelers win over the Jets. I could keep going on the offense, and I'm going to get back to the offense because that's a huge part of this game. 37 points is truly impressive. They're capitalizing 4 of their last 5 touchdowns or drives resulting in touchdowns. All 5 of those last drives resulting in scoring, though. That deserves a lot of praise. But this defense does too, because they came and they weren't perfect, but they were dominant in the second half, shutting out Aaron Rodgers, shutting out the Jets. And again, that's Aaron Rodgers with Devontae Adams. He went and got his guy, as Alan Lazard, Garrett Wilson. The Jets are that team that has those weapons that the people say the Steelers don't at wide receiver. And it didn't matter much in this game. And in fact, they kind of took the Jets receivers out of the game for the most part. The guy that hurt the Steelers the most was Breece Hall, because he caught 6 passes for 103 yards through the air. They were able to quell him on the ground. He had 12 carries for 38 yards at 3.2 yards per carry. That's not what's hurting you. What hurt the Steelers was when he got out in space and guys like Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson, they were missing tackles, and that was a little rough because he made some big plays off that, including a 57-yard catch and run. But at the same time, for all that, the Steelers defense still kicked a lot of butt in this game. You look at what they were able to contribute across the board. Peyton Wilson with 9 tackles leading the team. But the guy who we got to talk about and we got to give a lot of credit for, because we've given him some challenges throughout the year. We've talked about how he struggled at times. Beanie Bishop, the undrafted free agent rookie out of West Virginia, came in and balled in this one. I didn't include his clip because I wanted to we have other clips we want to get to. We'll get to I wanted to show my clip of Patrick Queen about the whole of this defense, but I asked Beanie Bishop about the first interception he had. He had 2 interceptions in this game, 6 combined tackles, 1 tackle for loss, which was really impressive. But both the picks were impressive in my opinion, of Beanie Bishop, because it showed his awareness of certain situations and playing to what the defense is trying to do. The first interception, Beanie Bishop said they were planning on it. They were watching film. They were studying how Aaron Rodgers liked to throw to the middle part of the field, and how you could set him up to try to take advantage of it. Well, he floated back into a zone, waited in the right seam, jumped the seam pass, and then he was able to get that interception. The second interception did bounce off of Garrett Wilson's chest plate, but I also think that the throw had to be adjusted because of the pressure and because Beanie Bishop kind of gave him a really tight passing window to hit, and I think it altered the ball just enough for Garrett Wilson to kind of lose track of it. It hit his chest, and the shoulder pads, bounced into the air. Beanie Bishop catches it, takes off, gets down to the one, setting up Russell Wilson's QB sneak one play later. But I thought this defense really showed up in the second half, especially. And I think it continues to be their in-game adjustments are what make them, because they have playmakers, but they're getting into the right spots a lot more consistently as games wear on. And that's a good thing to have, to be able to make those kind of adjustments. Patrick Queen, I talked to him in the locker room about that. Here's some answers from Patrick Queen talking about that experienced defense and how studious they are in the film room to get all these things right. Again, here's Patrick Queen in the Steelers locker room after the Sunday night win.
Patrick, you guys have talked about communication being a thing you guys needed to improve upon. How did you feel about it tonight with the interceptions you guys got?
Yeah, it was good after the first half. I think we settled down. I think it was really more tackling issues than just true communication. I think we just had a miscommunication on maybe 2 plays or something. And it didn't kill us. It could have, but it didn't. And the tackling issues, that's specifically me on the second half, those 2 tackles that I knew I got to have those back. It's just unacceptable. The guys performed, the guys played well, the guys tackled, the guys did everything they needed to do.
DeMarvin Leal tweeted out at halftime, he's like, watch what my boys are about to do. It seemed like you felt like y'all had something cooking, and then you guys came out with a pretty dominant second half.
Yeah, because we always come out second half. I don't know what it is, just lately we just got to start faster. It's just something that we keep preaching, something that we got to be on top of, is just starting faster. We started fast, we got a 3-and-out first drive, or whatever happened the first drive, I can't remember specifically. Then the second drive they scored. So that's just stuff that we can't keep having. We got to at least get 3-and-outs first, and we build off of that.
Is it something about in-game adjustments that this group has, with all the leaders it has, especially in defense, that allows you guys to be able to stay calm but also talk to each other to get those results?
Right. We watch so much film, it's crazy. Like me and Yee be up there with Mike T sometimes in the small circle meetings and stuff. Peyton young self in there. And we all just be talking and watching film. And by the time we get to like Friday, we all just worn out from film because we watch so much film. And Mike T has us on top of that stuff. TA, AT, all the guys, all the coaches got us on top of all that stuff. So when we come in on Friday, we be so tired. And Saturday is just rehearsal at that point, and then Sunday is go time. So Mike T prepares us well.
This is part of why I said from the jump, I thought the Steelers defense was going to be in a really good position this year, because they're going to have enough players like Patrick Queen, who is not a superstar. He's not an ultimate playmaker, but he's a guy that can be the glue piece between everyone else and keep the ship afloat. And I think he's helping do that. And again, he has been the ultimate difference maker, but he has been a solid addition to the Steelers. And he was right. Yeah, he was missing tackles. There were some really rough misses early on, and that led to some things. But again, the Steelers made adjustments. They were able to get back out there. They were able to play some strong defense. Again, Beanie Bishop with the 2 interceptions, just truly impressive on his part. But when you look at how things played out, Larry Ogunjobi got a sack. Alex Highsmith was bringing it. His pressures and his run stuffs were truly, I can't put a number on how valuable that was for Alex Highsmith to be able to pull that off, because he was getting after the quarterback and he was stuffing the run. Really good stuff there as well. Also, Dante Jackson got hurt in this game. James Pierre comes in and doesn't get completely torched. So that's kind of what you want there from your 4th string cornerback there. He coming in and making some plays. But looking across this defense, from the Deshaun Elliott's to the Minkah Fitzpatrick's to the Patrick Queens to the Cam Haywards, this is a defense that I think continues to be a really good defense at just making adjustments throughout the game, because they're getting smarter, they're learning your tendencies, and then they're saying, hey, we have the guys who can think on their feet and counter what they're trying to do over here. And I think that that's huge. I think that that's something that the Steelers absolutely need on their defense more often too. They could use some faster starts as well. But if you're looking at the defense tonight and you're upset about something, it shouldn't be something about being on the field, because I think that the Jets kind of got manhandled by the Steelers defense outside of a couple passes to Breece Hall over the middle where he just squirted loose and the Steelers took time to bring him down. But again, like, you can't really be. I find it tough to be critical of the Steelers defense when they shut out a Hall of Fame quarterback in the second half of the season. So all that being said, I think the Steelers defense has a lot going for it right now. If you look at how they played throughout this game with physicality and how they were able to keep bouncing back and then take advantage of even small moments, I think the Steelers defense has the pieces to be the best defense in the NFL, at least according to ESPN right now. As I look up the defensive numbers, I think the Steelers are giving up the second fewest points in the NFL right now, the third fewest rushing yards in the NFL right now. They're not really on the map too much for passing yards, naturally so, but I think when you got a defense that plays like this, aggressive, getting after it, it's a good sign, and you'll be able to get that more often, because I think that the Steelers are still figuring out who they really are on defense with all the extra plays. I mean, again, they kind of know who they are, but the things that they're going to have to do to win in different ways, the young guys especially, they're figuring that out. So all that being said, Steelers defense, really, phenomenal in the second half, could be better in the first, but I really do think that the Steelers have something going on there. But it's the combination of both that defense and that offense that has me feeling like this is an even bigger victory Monday than what we've seen in the first month and a half of games so far. There's still a lot to be talked about here, and how I do think this team's ceiling is much higher than people are giving it credit for. We'll talk about that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, remind you, the show is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America. This week, the Steelers open as 4.5-point favorites at home next Monday night against the New York Football Giants. The Steelers are getting -250 on the money line, while the Giants are at +205, with the over-under set at 37.5 points. But is that enough with the new offense? Find out when you place your bets on FanDuelSportsbook.com. Also, across the AFC North, the Bengals are 2.5-point favorites at home against the Eagles, while the Browns are 9.5-point road favorites against the Browns with Deshaun Watson out. So get started today on FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America, where you can get started with $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet today. That's $200 back in free bets to new customers when they just bet $5 only on FanDuel.com. Just visit FanDuel.com. Download America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. I want to get back to my point about the balance of this team, because again, like I said all along, it wasn't going to be just George Pickens winning the game. It wasn't going to just be this guy winning the game. It wasn't just going to be TJ Watt. The Steelers want to win as a complete team, and they know they're not a complete team yet, but they want to be a team that can hit you in so many different ways that you're now in a guessing game, and that allows them the chance to set the leverage as far as how the game will go the rest of the way. So all of that, I think I think Najee Harris said some really good things after the game about the Steelers and their defense, and or not the offense, but the offense rather, and how they're kind of coming together and figuring things out. So without further ado, just listen to Najee Harris when we're kind of asking him what he's seeing in this offense.
Najee, but Russ talked about how dangerous you guys can be as a balanced team with all the different ways that you're able to hurt opponents, and you saw that in this game with different guys. What does that say about you guys, especially as a young offense, to be able to beat defenses in multiple ways?
Yeah, man. Like I said, we're not. I remember a couple years. Sometimes we're just good at one thing, maybe, and being one-dimensional. I think now that we're both multi-dimensional, it's hard for teams to figure out what to focus on, and that's how you win games. I feel like, man, to have a balanced run and a balanced pass. I think that's how you go far in the playoffs too. And I think that's how good things happen. And you keen in on some players, there might be a breakout game for other players to eat. And that's just the team sport. This is the ultimate team sport. If I'm going down there and I'm getting beat up and Jalen comes in, he pops off the big run, he's eating. That's big props to him. And all the other guys in there, receivers and tight ends, man. It's just not one guy you got to focus on. It's a whole team. It's a whole bunch of us. And man, like I said, it's the ultimate team sport. And that's how you know if you have a good team when your one could be hurt, and then the backup comes in there, and then the backup gets hurt, just like the O-line. Then the third guy comes in there, and there's no drop off. There's still a balanced attack, and that's how a dominant team is formed.
That's how a dominant team is formed. Listen, the Steelers aren't a dominant team yet. They still have ways to go, but they dominated the Jets in this game, and that is a very good sign. It's also back-to-back games with 30 points, back-to-back double-digit wins. When has that happened for the Steelers in recent memory? That's pretty crazy. But again, to Najee Harris's point, it's not just the defense. It's not just T.J. Watt. It's not just him at running back. It's the offensive line. It's Russell Wilson. It's George Pickens. It's Calvin Austin. It's Pat Fryermuth. It's Darnell Washington. It's this balance that I've been saying for quite some time. I think if the Steelers can achieve that, it puts them in this position that they want to be offensively and also defensively, because as a team, they're not needing to score 50 points a game. They don't need to score 37 points a game. But if you look at the Steelers stats right now, as they sit coming out of this Sunday night football game, and with the 27 points that they scored, they're ranking, as I said, they need to dead smack in the middle at 16th in scoring offense with an average of 23 points per game. That's right where you want to be if you're the Steelers, because as I was putting it to Najee, and he was saying as well, like when you have that many different weapons, it becomes a challenge to follow all of them if you're as the opponent, and when you're balancing guys around, give guys opportunities to get open. And I think that's where the Steelers offense is trying to do with Arthur Smith. He's trying to put guys in advantageous situations. But as I said with Justin Fields, I think that he just wasn't seeing the field or just not confident enough to trust his eyes in certain situations, whereas Russell Wilson is confident enough to trust his eyes. And you saw that in this game, and it took a minute to get him warmed up. But once he got warmed up, he was lighting it up, and he's able to be the efficiency guy. So I think that there's still a lot of potential for the Steelers offense with Arthur Smith to continue to grow, as Russell Wilson said earlier. But I also think that if they're able to maintain the pace they're on now with like 23 points per game, not having too much of a clanker, I think that they can be a really dangerous team, because I think that with their offense, the way they can score different ways, as Najee Harris was putting it, like that provides an extra challenge for opponents. And then again, having that elite defense be elite and be dominant, especially in the second half, and they can get it for a whole game. Man, I really think that the Steelers could be on the precipice of something even better. And I think that honestly, we should be talking about what's the ceiling of this team right now if they're able to keep this up, because I think that when we're looking at the Steelers and how they're moving forward, a lot of people want talk about the instant part of it. The Justin Fields is this and Russell Wilson's that. But I think that one thing Russell Wilson does is that if he's able to balance this group the way he did in this game and get the ball around, read defense. That's the other part of it. He was reading defenses, countering that. Even when they got pressure in his face, he would learn how to spin out of it, and he would be able to, like, okay, let's hit this guy downfield for a first down. I think that part of the Steelers offense where they're starting to click in those areas, and they're starting to just be like, hey, I ran the ball on first down, and I'm throwing the ball on second down, and I'm getting some success there, and I'm calling play action. Those are the things I think the Steelers were learning in this game, was how to balance their success with those types of play calls. And as Najee Harris, explained, As he explained in the video, excuse me, when you go back and you're looking at what the Steelers need to do, they need to be diversified. They need to have a diverse set of attacks and ways to beat you. That when you're limiting yourself to one scope of how you're going to beat you, it's very easy to game plan for. Even when you're in this situation, I look at the Steelers right now and I think, man, this is a team that if they can keep figuring it out, they can keep getting a little bit better. I think that they could be a much more serious contender in the AFC than people gave them credit for. But we still have a lot to talk about. I still have to do my grades. We'll do that tomorrow on the Locked On Steelers podcast. The All-22 isn't out yet, so we'll try to get to it and get some thoughts there. Again, thanks for everyone for tuning into the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com. Find me here every day, Monday through Friday, on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Thanks again for watching the Locked On Steelers podcast. Again, be sure to tune in tomorrow. We got our Stars and Skulls grades to see how everyone did. We'll see you then here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.